Hey, my name is Joe Ando. Join me on this exclusive lesson to learn how to make your own pair of pants. We're about to dive into pockets. This is the pocket section. The reason we're gonna hit the pockets first is because on the front pant leg, you can see that there is a little section that is missing. So this is the pant leg right here with this cutout right here. And what we're doing is we're creating the pocket bag so that way we can sew it to the front pattern leg and fill in this gap space right there so we can attach this whole thing to the back pant leg. So we're getting that ready. And then we can move on to sewing the actual body of the pant. First thing is first is prepping the front pant leg with the pocket. We're taking this cover right here. This is the bottom pocket bag cover. On the 1/2 inch line, that's where the seam allowance line is. That's the line that you're sewing on all the seams. Take your pencil, take your ruler, go to a 1/2 inch. Cool. Now you can see along the 1/2 inch, we've drawn this line right here. You're gonna take your scissors and you're gonna snip into it along the curve. So the tough thing about curves when you're sewing is they don't naturally fall flat, especially if you're folding fabric under. Look what happens if you try and fold this without these snips. It's all wobbly and not really flat. It's just not really falling the right way. But what you do with these snips is it releases tension and it has some give and it allows you to fold these under individually, creating a more smooth curve along this edge. So only along the curve, not along the straight parts. You snip up to that 1/2 inch line that we just drew. It's sort of like a guide to make things a little easier this first time around. Snip up to it, snip up to it, snip up to it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go get our iron and we're gonna fold these things under using this 1/2 inch line as a guide for where you need to stop. So get your mat or your ironing board, whatever works. Place it on here, get your iron, and you're gonna go along that 1/2 inch line right here. You're gonna fold it under. Don't be afraid to just pinch and create like a little crease. And you're gonna do this all the way around. I generally like to do it like this on the opposite side. So that way you can see where it stops and you're gonna take your iron. Now you just gotta go ahead, use your hands, keep folding down along that crease line, along that line you've drawn. Don't be afraid to steam it to really set it in place. There we go. And now all the way. And what you're doing is you're creating a clean, finished edge. So that way it's not going to be all raw when you put it down. And sew it to the actual piece. And what you're going to do now is get rid of this thing. Take this under pocket bag right here. This is the one that doesn't have this section cut out right there. You're going to take this thing you just made, this cover, and you're going to place it and match it along these edges right here. There's a notch at the top of this pocket bag right here, the little snip you should have done on it, and you're actually matching up this top piece to that notch on the pocket bag. So match that right there, match the corner here, and then just place the bottom. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take your pins, and you're just going to pin along here. Cool. So now that this is done, what we're going to do is we're going to bust our sewing machine out, get rid of your iron. We're going to get our sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch from this edge all the way up. So every sewing machine has a measurement marker right where the foot is. It'll show you where 1/4 inch is, where a 1/2 inch is. Find those marks because they're going to be your best friend in this situation. Take this pin, put it under your foot, and find where that 1/4 inch line is. Put your foot down. So for this, technically what we're about to do is we're about to top stitch. So top stitch is just a stitch you do along the top to hold things together. Often it's used as a design or just to kind of hold things down to give it that extra sturdy sewing seam stitch along the top. So what we're going to do now is sew 1/4 inch from the edge, put this thing down. Also, important thing to know for a top stitch, it doesn't need to be the small stitch that we usually use. So when we do seams, often you're doing like a 2 to a 3 length stitch. You often have a measurement thing on your machine that allows you to judge how wide you want your stitches to be. For this, if you can find it, feel free to go 3 or 3.5. That's just the different stitch length. For a top stitch, it's not so crucial to have it be such a tight stitch because it's not holding two pieces together for a seam. So feel free to make it a little bit bigger because it's technically a detail choice. So now that we're here, what you need to know when you're starting to sew anything is you need to start with a back tack. So what that means is you go 2 stitches forward. Don't be afraid to use the hand crank thing. Go 2 stitches forward. And then use your reverse button on your machine. If you don't have a reverse button on your machine, you might just have to take your piece and flip it around and then sew backwards. But if you do, press the button down, go back 3 stitches or 2 stitches, whatever you've done, and then continue your seam stitching. That's just to hold it in place. What that does is it locks the end of the thread so that it doesn't unravel and fall out later on. So now that you've done that, now that you've back tacked, you can go ahead and sew along a 1/4 inch while pulling out your pins. Not everybody pulls their pins out. Some people don't mind. But usually what happens when you leave your pin in on the piece is you run over it and it bends your pin, and sometimes it opens up a hole in your fabric that you don't really want. So it's good practice just to be safe about that. But now, go ahead, sew 1/4 inch all the way along the edge. And at the end, just like we did at the beginning of the seam, get to the end of the line that you're sewing, reverse 2 to 3 stitches, and then go forward 2 stitches again, pull your thread out, get your scissors, pull this away, and you can cut it away, and that's a top stitch on that piece right here. Now what I like to do for detail's sake is do another stitch at 1/8 of an inch between the edge and that 1/4 inch stitch you just put in there. So take it back to your machine and sew a line the same exact way at 1/8 of an inch. Remember, make sure you start with the back tack, 2 stitches forward, 2 stitches back, and then go all the way around. You do not have to go this fast. All right, get to the end, back tack 2, 3 stitches, go back forward, 2, 3 stitches, pull it out, snip it away. Always make sure to clean your threads off by cutting them away, the excess thread that you got. And now, look at that double top stitch. It's a nice little detail. Anyone who sees that is going to go, oh, 2 top stitches. Only specific people might notice that and care, but it will help it last longer, makes it more durable, and it's also just kind of nice knowing that you did it. The effort goes a long way when you're trying to create a piece that's going to last for a while. So now that that's done, we're going to need our sewing machine again, but just move it to the side for now. Now we're going to be pinning, and this is the beginning of what we call a French seam. This is one of the nicest seams that you do. Like I mentioned, today we're doing a flat felt seam, Hong Kong seam, and we're going to be working on this French seam. So this is the first place that you're going to see a French seam done. You're going to take the wrong side of the fabric and attach it to the wrong side. So the right side in a pocket would be the inside. It's where you put your hands in. So right here, you slide your hand in there. That's the right side, would be the inside. So what you're doing is you're taking the wrong side and attaching it to the wrong side, because with the pocket, we're going to flip this inside out to create it. So you got to start like this. And what you're going to do is you're going to match everything up. There's a notch at this bottom corner right here. There you go. You can see it. You cut it on both pocket pieces. And you're going to pin all the way around. Make sure you match up that notch to make sure everything is where it needs to be. Pin there first, and then match up everything else and pin around the edges. And what we're going to do after this is we're going to sew along this entire edge at 1/4 of an inch, not a 1/2 inch. I know there's a 1/2 inch seam allowance, but what we're going to do is sew 1/4 of an inch first along the edge, flip it inside out, trim some of that excess seam allowance away, and then sew another 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to show you what that looks like just in case you're a little confused right now. All right, so check it out. We've got the whole edge pinned. Get your sewing machine again. Find that 1/4 inch mark on your sewing machine so you know where to put everything. Pop this pocket on. Line it up at 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And per usual, start 2 stitches forward, 2 stitches back for that back tack to lock the thread in. And then you're going to go 1/4 of an inch all the way around the edge. And since we're doing a technical seam, we're putting two pieces together that can pull apart. Move back down to a smaller stitch length. If you did go ahead and move to that 3.5 range, go back down. Stitch, back tack. Now go all the way around at 1/4 inch. Now we're at the end. Make sure you back tack 2 stitches, and then come forward 2 stitches, lock that thread in, pull this out, get your scissors, snip away the excess thread. Do the same thing at the top. It's good practice to constantly just keep cleaning up what you're working on, so that way at the end you don't mess anything up or forget anything. So now, look at that stitch. We've got a stitch running 1/4 inch all the way around here. What we're going to do now is take our scissors, and we're going to trim away around half of what's here. So trim that away. And remember, when you do the other pocket, you're mirroring everything. So it's not going to be exactly like this. It's going to be flipped. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. Same thing for the pant leg. Same thing for everything that's mirrored on the other pant leg. Get your iron. Put this down here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to flip this inside out. So take this, open it up, flip it inside out. Use your iron to kind of flatten down the seams. So you're going to have to go in here, just push it to one side. That's good enough. All right. Do the same thing at the bottom. Okay. And you're just flattening it down, getting it ready. And you're going to take your iron and now go back over it, flattening that seam down, making it nice and flat because you're about to sew another seam at 1/4 inch. And you're going to catch that excess seam allowance that you just left out there in this new seam that you're creating. There you go. Bring your machine back. And now you're going to do the same thing along this edge. You're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down and around. Per usual, make sure you back tack at the beginning and the end. And what you're doing is you're catching your seam allowance. Instead of a normal seam where you just sew it at 1/2 inch and you iron it down and it's got raw edges, what you're doing now is you're sewing at 1/4 inch the first time, you trimmed away some excess, you folded it inside out, and you're sewing at another 1/4 inch, which is catching that excess in the next 1/4 inch. So when I'm done, you're going to see what I'm talking about. Pop it on the machine, find that 1/4 inch mark so you know where you're sewing at. Start with a back tack. Okay. Now I'm at the end. Make sure to back tack. Same thing, open it up, get your scissors, cut that thread away, cut the excess thread away at the top or the beginning of the stitch. And now what you've got is a French seam. So remember, because you initially sewed the wrong side to the wrong side, you had that seam allowance sticking out. Then you folded it inside out and you put that seam allowance on the inside, and then you sewed another line at 1/4 inch. All of that raw edge is now caught in this seam you just created. That's a French seam. It's the best way to do it. Now that we've got this French seam done on this pocket, this is the pocket bag. That's what you call this. This is done. Now, to finish it off, to finish off the front pattern leg, to get it ready for sewing the actual pant body, you take this pattern leg. So as you can see, these two edges right here match. This is the edge on the front pattern piece. This is the edge on the upper pocket bag right here. So what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to attach these two pieces, which is then going to fill this gap, creating the full side seam of this pant leg. So what we do now, lay this flat like this. You're going to take this and you're going to flip it, and you're going to attach the inside pieces to this. So you're taking this and you're doing that. Match them up. Take this, and just to clarify, this is the inside of the pocket bag. So you're taking the inside of the pocket bag, this upper pocket bag right here, taking it and putting it on the right side of the front pant leg. What you're going to do is you're going to sew a 1/2 inch along this line, flip it over, and what it's going to do is it's going to fill that gap of space that's on the side seam right here. And it's going to end up looking something like this. A lot smaller, because obviously we haven't sewn it properly yet, but it's going to fill that gap and create a proper full side seam. And if you didn't want pockets, all you would have to do on your pattern is go ahead and just draw that section in and fill it in. You can use your pocket to create the gap so you know what the shape is going to be like. And that's if you don't want pockets. I personally want pockets on everything. But if you don't have to have them. So here you go. Now that this is pinned, what I like to do with this bottom section here, just because it moves around, it's a little flimsy, just take an extra pin and just do a little sturdy pin to keep it in place. So now you've got this pinned, you're going to take this back to your sewing machine and you're going to sew along this edge at a 1/2 inch. Find your 1/2 inch line. Per usual, what I always say, make sure you do your back tack. Take that sturdy pin out if it's in the way, and now you're going to go at a 1/2 inch all the way along this edge. That's your seam allowance here. Back tack, pull this up, take this out, go ahead, snip away that extra thread. Put your sewing machine to the side, get your ironing mat or board, get your iron. You're going to open it up to that clean side over here. And what you're going to do is iron it down. There you go. Now that that's ironed down like this, now you're going to take it again with the seam allowance now on the inside. As you can see here, you've created a clean edge. The seam allowance is on the inside because you just flipped it. Now go ahead, take your iron, and sew over this, creating a clean finish. And what we're going to do, the last step of connecting this, you don't have to do it, it's just a nice way to finish it off. You're going to top stitch at a 1/4 inch along this edge. What that does is it holds it together so that way when the pant is done, this part isn't moving around and opening. This top stitch keeps it down and keeps it in place. So now get your sewing machine again. As you can see, the pocket bag fills into this space very nicely. That's where your hand enters into the pocket. And what you're going to do is you're going to sew 1/4 inch along this edge. Sometimes, since the pocket bag's not fully attached, you just want to put a pin in to keep it in place. Even myself, at this point, I still need to make sure I have a little help. But once you put that in, go ahead, and what you're doing is along that diagonal line, like I said again, you're doing a 1/4 inch top stitch. Start with a back tack to lock that thread in. Now sew all the way up at a 1/4 inch. Finish it off with a back tack. Pull it out, snip it, clean up the thread. Pull the pin out, or any pins you may have used. Don't be afraid to overpin things if it helps you. And just like that, the pocket bag is now attached to the front pant piece. Look at that gap, it's filled in. We've created a full proper side seam. This is what the pocket looks like. Your hand can go inside. And that's the front pant piece done. Now I'm going to go ahead, finish off the other pant leg, make sure everything's ready to go, and then we're going to meet in the next lesson where we're going to be actually putting this pant together and learning some really good finishings for the seams. Thank you for joining me. That was one part of a full class that I have on Skillshare that's just dropped. Click the link below to tune into the rest of it.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our latest videos.